As Muhammad of Freetown Collective so sagely put it, it's not easy to just be yourself when your whole life you've been listening to someone else.
True. Whether it's the TV or the radio, people need to love themselves if they want to grow.
My first trip abroad, my first time ever on a plane, was at 16 years old to Wales for the International Eisteddfod. I went with my high school choir for this 2-week long International Performing Arts Festival. Walking through the city of Llangollen and driving back to Cleisfasi, that's where our accommodation was, I was transfixed by the charm and beauty of both the rural and urban environment. I had a deep sense of homecoming, as if I had been there before. And I was right. I had been there before. Through the pages of Enid Blyton, through the songs that I'd sung in choir about England's green and pleasant land, although we were in Wales. I had read so much about the British countryside that I felt like I was finally discovering in person the landscapes that the authors of my childhood had written so descriptively about. My reverent regard of them was due in large part to these artists of my childhood who found these landscapes worthy of being immortalized in prose, poem, song, or even painting. However, in returning to Trinidad and the crush of daily life and the familiarity born out of habit, I found it difficult to gaze upon the vista of my home country with the same reverent regard. So I decided that I wanted to experience my country through the pens of appreciative and skillful wordsmiths. So I decided to tackle the West Indian fiction section of the Trinidad and Tobago National Library. And I must admit, although the mystic Masseur was gut-bustingly hilarious, I got stuck on what I perceived as Naipaul's vitriol towards Trinidad. So moving along to Earl Lovelace's The Dragon Can't Dance, his descriptive writing took my breath away. I remember writing an email to my sister saying, "You have to read this book, you have to read this book." I had to pause after some paragraphs just to soak in what I had just read. It was magical. Someone who could take mundane and familiar activities and frame it as the poetry of everyday life. And on the topic of the poetry of everyday life, I think that Van Gogh, the French artist, really captured this sentiment. He lovingly painted day laborers, farmers, ordinary common folk who he could see from the window of his mental asylum. Just as Van Gogh recorded the ordinary and overlooked with dignity, so too did Freetown Collective display the hauntingly tragic love story of a harassed-looking street dweller. I like how artists like Chronix, Patra, Voice show their real environment in their music videos. These are my favorite types of videos. Just capturing life instead of staging it. Yes, I know it's staged, but what I'm referring to is this type of video versus the cold, generic studio set. I remember my first real grown-up job. I was an OJT, on the job trainee. After high school, I was assigned the job title of administrative assistant, but I had lots of spare time. I remember taking pages and pages of notes on a notepad that I was given for official purposes analyzing the themes and literary devices in Michael Anthony's Green Days by the River. Michael Anthony had wrapped up this coming of age story so beautifully. It was a veritable pleasure just uncovering it. And in uncovering it, discover the beauty of the Toko landscape, the intrigue of community life, the tenderness, drama, and tension of family life, the rich culture customs, and the endearing teenage mischief. The kind of mischief that pays attention too late to the enduring consequences of decisions made in youthful passion. Was this our local equivalent of Pride and Prejudice? I'm sure someone more versed in Pride and Prejudice could probably make a more apt comparison. But it warmed my heart that our local stories in the local landscapes with the local customs were deemed important enough to warrant immortality in the pages of a book. It is affirming. It is validating to know that the life you are living is one worthy of being written about. However, I must point out that all representation in whatever form of media is not always good representation, and I find that the perils of Caribbean representation is the overabundance and overexposure of landscape, sun, sea, sand, or this obsession with grit and poverty. But what about the ordinary middle-class stories? Why are they always overlooked? I often have to roll my eyes when I look at a movie where there's, let's say, just one black character, and they're either the police chief, gangster, best friend, lionized, exceptional hero, or magical negro. They are often two-dimensional and disposable. I would like to see characters like me, people that I know, experiences that I've lived, stories that I can identify with. I would like to see those characters treated with dignity and given full story arcs. A redemptive arc, or for the very least, a nuanced one. I just want to see me on my TV and in my books and on Al Gore's internet.
So they can't empty me with the MTV. Tell BT they could beat it. Yeah, I want to see me on my TV. Oh.
When Enid Blyton spoke about treacle pudding, I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly because I've only ever read the word. When she spoke about treacle pudding and all the children were waiting for treacle pudding and they needed to eat their dinner because they wanted to have treacle pudding and it was such a treat. I'm like, what is treacle pudding? What is this thing? But when you hear David Rudder describe eating a mango and how the juice running down your arm, just as intriguing.
Yeah, I want to see me on my TV.